Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen. Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Tasliman kathiran kathira. My brothers and sisters, I want you to do this exercise. We are in this is the number sixth key in the 7 keys to success, and that is resolving conflicts. Sit with a friend of yours and exchange 2 stories. One, a story where you were in a conflict and you won, and the other one, a story where you were in a conflict and you lost. And then see what you can extract from it as lessons on how to get a win-win solution. What works and what doesn't work. There is a very nice survey, very nice psychometric testing instrument on the internet called the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument. I am giving the link to that in this video. So go there and take that test. You will get some very interesting results. Now Thomas Kilmann's, these are 2 people, Thomas and Kilmann. Thomas Kilmann talk about 5 different what they call conflict resolution styles. Each of us, we use all of them depending on the situation, but we tend to use 1 or 2 much more than others. And usually it's because of the kind of circumstances that we are in, and we find that that works for us, but which is fine most of the time. The problem happens if we then get into a situation which is different and where our style of conflict resolution may actually become a problem for us. What is the ideal situation? The ideal situation is to be able to use any of these styles equally comfortably, depending on the situation that you find yourself in. The model is based on 2 elements. One is assertiveness and one is cooperativeness. Assertiveness on the vertical axis and cooperativeness on the horizontal axis. When you do that, you end up with 5 different kinds of conflict resolution styles. Top left corner, which is highly assertive and highly cooperative. Both are high. Highly assertive and highly cooperative. You get a style which we call the collaborative style, which is win-win. I must win, but I will also try to help you to win. That is the first one we talk about. Second one, across from there, which is highly assertive but low cooperation, which is I must win and you can go to hell. That's called the competitive win-lose style of conflict resolution. Coming down to the bottom left corner, which is low assertiveness and high cooperativeness, is what we call the accommodative style. I will go out of my way, I will help you to win even at my cost. Across from there is low assertiveness and low cooperativeness, which is I can't fight you, but I will not cooperate with you. So I am going to disappear, which we call the avoiding style. And right in the middle, some assertiveness, some cooperativeness, we have what is called the compromise, which Thomas Kilmann called lose-lose. Now, looking at these 5 styles, as I said, you might say which is the best, but there is no the best. The best is what works in that situation. But just to give you an understanding of that. Now, the problem solving or collaborating style is, as I said, win-win. It's useful in most places if you can do that, where you get commitment, you get teamwork, you get people who will cooperate with you, and where the conflict will actually result in better relationships. Now you might say, well, win-win is not possible everywhere. I agree with you. I am not saying it's possible everywhere. I'm saying try to use it wherever it's possible, and try that out before you try anything else. You would be surprised how many times win-win is actually possible. Remember, a lot of that depends on how you put across the situation to the other person in that conflict. And depending on your own communicating ability and your ability to make the other person see what's in it for them, you will be surprised that you will probably be able to use the win-win style far more often than you would have imagined. So do try that as the first option. Then we have the forcing or competing win-lose style, which is like, my way or the highway kind of thing. Useful in emergencies, useful when there is a high stress situation, useful when you don't have too much of time to explain. But obviously, it's important that you should have a high level of trust with your team, that they just take your word for it. But later on, always give an explanation. Explain to people why you were telling them what you were telling them. For example, if there is an emergency, if there is a fire, if there is a gas leak, then if I come into the room, I'm not going to be spending a half an hour lecturing you and telling you and explaining to you all the dangers of gas. I will just say, get out of this room now, move it. Now, that's not the most polite way of doing that, but when you realize why I did that, you will thank me for having booted you out of the room, instead of trying to be very polite and nice and so on and so forth, which would probably have delayed and ended up with both of us getting killed. So, depending on that situation, but when there is no such emergency, then there is no such life and death kind of a situation, then using the competing style, using a autocratic, authoritative style is not a good idea at all, because you will just ruffle a lot of feathers and you might end up getting far more resistance to what you want people to do than you would have done had you been softer and had you been kinder and had you been more persuasive in your way of communication. So I'm just trying to explain to you how there will be places where each style has a role to play, but not everything everywhere. Then we come to in the center, which is called the compromising or bargaining, which is Thomas Kilmann call it win-lose, lose-win, or lose-lose, both ways. Basically what it means is that both are evenly matched, and therefore now you have to figure out a way in which, even though you cannot have everything you want and I can't have everything I want, we'll come to some kind of a via media where we can have at least some of or most of what we need to have. Again, I wouldn't use this as the first option, but definitely it is an option to be explored. It is not something to be discarded. And very importantly, if you use a compromising style of resolving a conflict, do visit it again after some time, especially if some of the circumstances have changed, and you might be able to find a win-win solution where you originally had a compromise solution. Now, avoiding is sometimes avoiding not as in just running away, because that is really not even a conflict resolution style. Conflicts avoided are conflicts postponed. They just come up, and when they come up, usually they come up in a worse way. But avoiding temporarily, for example, when tempers are high, maybe emotions are high, there's no point in carrying on at that point in time. It is better to take a break, cool off period, cool off time, go drink some coffee, drink some cool drink or something, and come back, take some rest, get some shut-eye, whatever the case might be, but you need to come back and resolve that conflict. Sometimes you might even say, let's take a break to get more information. Maybe we need some expert opinion here, so we're going to get an attorney or whoever it is we need to come and talk to us. Whatever the case might be, remember, if you are if you are avoiding a conflict, it is not resolved. So you will have to come back and resolve it. Avoiding it temporarily, there may be reasons to do that, and no problem with that. The smoothing and accommodating style, the lose-win style, is obviously a wonderful style as far as others are concerned, because you are available to them 24 hours, 24/7, you are available to them day and night, you are willing to do whatever it takes to help others. All very well, as long as you can maintain that, as long as it doesn't overtax you. One danger with this is that when you play this game, I don't mean that in a negative sense, but when you are being accommodated, if at any point in time you have to assert yourself and you say, sorry, I'm not going to do this now, you will get a lot of resentment. People will then say, what happened to this guy? Suddenly he's become very high and mighty. The problem is people start taking your good nature for granted as a birthright for them. And then when you suddenly wake up one day and say, what the hell, I don't have a life left because my life is now at the beck and call of everybody else, so I need some time to myself, then people start resenting you. So maintain a balance in that. By all means, be accommodative, be kind, be nice, be helpful, but don't sell yourself short in that process. Now, let me give you a conflict resolution tool, and that tool is called active listening. Active listening is different from passive listening. Now, why should you do active listening? Because the reality is that unless you actively choose to listen, you will not listen. For most of us, especially in a conflict situation where emotions are high, where there are vested interests, where there are controversial things being spoken about and discussed and debated and so on and so forth and argued, we usually work with trigger words. So that as soon as we hear the other side say a particular word, our mind starts manufacturing a response. And our hearing and our listening, not hearing, our listening completely shuts down. We are not paying attention anymore. We lose data. And then what happens is that when we make a response, many times that response is completely inappropriate and the response is wrong, and you end up with a lot of egg on your face for no reason. So it is very important to actively listen. How do you actively listen? By consciously making a decision to listen. You have to say to yourself, I am going to listen to this person. Believe me, unless you do that, you will not be listening. Second thing is, or rather even before that, create an atmosphere to listen. Meaning, shut off your phone, shut off no noise, no disturbance. Make sure you are giving that person full time eye contact, face to face. You're not looking away, you're not scribbling, doodling, nothing. Pay attention, look at the person, listen very carefully to what the person is saying. Then share with the person what you understood. After every few sentences or after every section of their speech is over, say, excuse me, let me share with you, let me tell you what I understood till now. This is what I understand you to be saying. Is that correct? Is that correct? Right? And if the person says yes, then please continue. If the person says no, that's not what I said, then say, please, can you tell me what did you say? Don't argue with them. Just ensure that you are with them, that you understood them the way they wanted to be understood. Right? And move ahead only when the speaker is satisfied that you have understood them entirely. Now remember, especially if you are talking about or debating with somebody on a controversial issue and you really want to disagree with them, it is even more important to listen carefully. Because unless you understand the situation clearly, you cannot even disagree effectively. So it's not only for agreement, especially for disagreement, especially where it's an issue which is apparently controversial. You must listen very carefully and share your understanding with the person. You will be surprised when you do this how amazingly powerful this tool is, the active listening. Let me share with you. I was running a very large rubber plantation in South India, in Kerala, Tamil Nadu border. We had a communist union, CPM, Communist Party, Marxist, very militant. We had instances of managers before me being assaulted and beaten up very badly, hospitalized for months. So it was a very, very hostile, extremely aggressive situation. That's when I went and I took over the estate. And then we had the wage negotiation, which is a very volatile thing. The wage negotiation came on. It so happened I was also at that time the president of the Kerala Kanyakumari District Planters Association. So I was also the head of the employer's body. So it was my job now to negotiate the wage settlement. So the history was that for over 100 years, the history was that the wage settlement itself was used to be negotiated every 3 years, and before it was never settled. It was never negotiated and agreed upon on the day it was supposed to go into operation, which was the 1st of January of that particular year. So it would take between sometimes 12 months, sometimes a little bit more or less, for the wage agreement to be agreed upon. Now, that caused two problems. One was that during that entire period, when the old wage agreement had expired and the new one had not yet been agreed upon, the union would put on pressure to the management. So there would be strikes, there would be work stoppages, there would be go slows and so on. So we would have the estates would have they would have low production, they would have all kinds of tensions. Sometimes it would escalate into violence, all sorts of stuff, because unions were putting pressure on the management. So then, eventually, no matter what, and at the end of the day, some wage would be agreed upon, and that would be obviously a little bit more than what they were paying previously, which means that back wages had to be paid suddenly, and that was a big strain on the working capital, because suddenly out of the blue now you had this big payment to make. So what I decided when I took over was, I said that I will ensure that the wage negotiation is ended before the current agreement expires, and on January 1 we start with the new agreement. This was my goal to myself. I'm telling you how I used active listening in a real life situation. So around September I called the unions, and the union there was, as I said, communist union, Marxist. The president was a gentleman by the name of Hemachandra Nair, and the general secretary was a gentleman by the name of C. Perumal. Both of them later became very good friends of mine, but as of now, as I'm speaking to you, both of them have passed away. Anyway, so I called them and I said, please bring your charter of demands. So they said, there is still time. And I said, no, you just bring the charter of demands. I want to see what it is, and let's talk about it, because we want to get the agreement going from day one, from January 1. They said it has never happened before. I said, yeah, that's the reason we want to do it, because it never happened before. So they came. After I had this telephone conversation with them, 3-4 days later, they brought the charter of demands. Now, as usual, when I read the charter of demands, the usual tendency, usual game that managements and unions play, which is a very ridiculous game, which is that if the union wants 1, they ask for 10, and then they negotiate backwards. And if the management wants 10, they ask for 1, and then they negotiate upward. It's a completely ridiculous thing, total waste of time, and unnecessarily, everyone gets hot under the collar. So when I got the charter of demands, when I read through that, I realized this is what was happening here. So I said to them, I agree with all of this. Now when I said I agree with all of this, Hemachandra Nair, who was the president, he says, Adi Engane Bettu. He says, how is that possible? So I told him, said, even you know it is not possible, then why do you give me this thing? So anyway, both of us had a good laugh. Then I told him, I said, look, let's not waste time. You know this, I know this. So give me a charter of demands which is reasonable. And I guarantee you that I will accept it, as long as it's reasonable, number one. Number two, I said to him, tell me, do you want this business to shut down? Do you want our estates to just, lock and go home? He said, of course not. I said, yes, I agree with you. Of course not. Why? Because if I lock up this estate and go home, if I lose my job here, I said, I have the education to get another one. But your worker, your member, is a rubber tapper. Where is he going to go? He's got nowhere to go, right? So he's going to starve. And if you've got a whole bunch of people starving because of your whatever you did, you're not going to become very popular in that. So it's bad for you politically. So I said, here is a situation where if you and I cooperate, then it is good for you and it's good for me, right? You've got a problem here. The problem is not you versus me. The problem is me and you versus the problem. Let's solve it. Both of us are happy. Now, nobody ever talked to him like that before. So he was very surprised. He didn't say anything, but I could see that this was making sense to him. Because I was showing him WIIFM, what's in it for me, meaning what's in it for him. So I said, you bring this thing. And I said, now, for this business to run profitably, I said, these are my parameters. This is the production I need. This is the daily task of the workers I need. This is the profitability I need, and so on. I said, these are non-negotiable as far as I am concerned, because if I don't get them, then this estate cannot be run. I will lose my job and the place has to be shut down. So these are non-negotiable. I said, other than this, you tell me whatever you want, I'll give you. Now, to make a long story short, we sat down and we negotiated. Now, in the negotiation, I brought in active listening. And I said to them, I taught them this thing, literally, I mean, like a training course. I said, we are going to practice this thing. And they had a big laugh. They said, we never done. I said, don't tell me we never, I know you've never done, but you're going to do it now. So they said, okay. So I said, now, only simple thing. I said, you're not agreeing to anything. You are just going to repeat to me what you understood. And I'm going to tell you what I understood. You will tell me what you understood, and I will tell you what I understood when we are talking, and then we will go further. So I understand you to be saying this. I understand you to be saying that you want the best for my workers who are my employees. I understand you to be saying, sir, that you want the best for my employees, my members of my union. Right? So effectively, both of us want the same thing. We want the best for these bunch of people who happen to be my employees, and they happen to be your union members. So we are not on two opposite sides. We are both of us are together. We are trying to resolve a matter which is in the best interest of these people. Right? So I said, where is the conflict? There is no conflict. Two of us are looking at trying to solve a problem. Now, to make a long story short, we signed that agreement before the 31st of December, and from the 1st of January, it went into, it was put into effect. First time it happened in over 100 years of history of that district, of Kanyakumari district in South India. Active listening is an extremely powerful tool. Please do use it. And what do? All you do is, you will share your understanding with the speaker. This is what I understand you to be saying. Is it correct? And if the speaker says yes, you go ahead. If the speaker says no, then let the speaker tell you again what they are trying to say, and you try to understand that. As I said, actively listen, consciously make an intention to listen, and by repeating, you're not repeating their words, you are telling them what you understood. Now, there are some critical attitudes that are required to resolve conflicts. The 5 of them. First one, respect for each other. This is very critical. This is something which really falls down, and that's the problem why conflict get bad. Because when in a conflict, we turn it into an adversarial thing. It's like an enemy, like a war. So you speak disrespectfully, you look down on people, you speak down to people, and that is what makes matters worse. So never do that. Respect the other person. The other person is a human being like you, so respect the other person and show that respect. Typical behavior, like you stand up and you offer them a cup of tea or whatever it is in your culture, do that. Second thing is respect for the contrary opinion. Remember, conflict means that the other person is actually committed to whatever you're talking about. If somebody is not committed, they will not disagree with you. They will not go into conflict. They will say, do whatever you like. It makes no difference to me. But when a person is committed, this is a wonderful thing. So respect for the contrary opinion. Number 3, the ability to dialogue and debate without rancor. Now this is a communication ability. It's also an ability, it's also a factor of how conscious you are and how aware you are of your own feelings and how much in control of those feelings you are. Right? If you're going to fly off the handle, then it doesn't work. So ability to dialogue and debate without rancor. Then ensuring that the bonds of brotherhood, the bonds of friendship are unaffected by disagreement. This is very, very important. A conflict, if it is handled properly, will actually deepen the relationship and make the relationship more sound. It will not break the relationship. And finally, concern for common good supersedes self-interest. Right? Very, very important to understand these factors. Just want to say to you that the single biggest strength of modern Western corporate culture is the deliberate space given to contrary opinion and the respect with which it is treated. I worked with GE and with other major corporations now for over 35 years. And one thing I can tell you, yes men have no future in the organization. People want you to push back, people want you to have an opinion, people want you to be able to do what if thinking, people want you to be able, want to see what your metal is and how you can look at the opposite view, but doing that with respect and doing that properly. There's no room for drama and all that sort of stuff. Politely and in a very good, in a good way. So disagreeing without being disagreeable, and that is very, very important, right? So being able to push back, just saying yes sir, no sir doesn't work. And that is the reason why these corporations are so successful, because they are able to foresee situations before those situations reach a level of emergency. Now, the essential conditions from our point of view as Muslims is focus only on what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the conflict, and what does not please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to break hearts, is to strain and cut off relationships. Number two, a genuine desire to solve the conflict. Number three is very important, willingness to accept our own fault and willingness to forgive others. If you do not forgive others, the conflict will never end. Remember, the greatest master stroke that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did was when he conquered Mecca. His greatest master stroke was in forgiving all his enemies. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam killed enmity. He defeated his enemies not by killing the enemies, but by killing enmity. And all those enemies became his friends. They became his greatest supporters. They supported him and they stayed with him lifelong. Because when he had the power, when he could have extracted vengeance, he did not do it. There's a huge, huge, huge lesson to be learned in terms of dealing with conflict. And that lesson is the willingness to forgive. If you look at how he had been tortured and how he had been, how his property had been destroyed and misappropriated and stolen, and how he had been, his rights had been abused, he had every single right to at least get compensation for what he lost and what his companions lost. He did not do that. He did not even take compensation. He did not even extract compensation, let alone any kind of penal punishments on the people involved. He just forgave them straight away, out of hand. And that way he killed all enmity and he killed all future vendettas and all future negativity in that relationship. Number four, skill in conflict resolution and communication. As I told you, communication is always, always, always important. The ability to say what you need to say and to do that in the most effective way possible. In some cases, this also means knowing a language well. This whole story that I told you in the rubber estates, I was using two languages, Tamil and Malayalam, both of which I speak fluently. Without those languages, none of this would have happened. I told you the story in English, but I don't use any English there. They didn't speak English. So I used Tamil and Malayalam, and because I speak both the languages well, worked absolutely fantastically. So knowing the language is extremely important. And number five, willingness to seek help if necessary. Do not stand on any kind of ego hassles. If you find things are getting out of control, get hold of somebody who can help you. Because the key thing, the most important thing is to ensure that you get what you are looking for. And if you can't get that by yourself, help is always available. Find somebody who can help you and seek help. If you get into an ego hassle, you will destroy yourself. Let's understand a couple of things very clearly. Number one is conflicts continue because there are vested interests. Take any conflict, whether it's a domestic conflict between husband and wife, whether it's a conflict in the larger extended family, whether it's a conflict between two countries, whether it's a conflict within a country with certain people. A conflict continues only for one reason, and that is because both parties have vested interest. Both of the people in parties involved, they are gaining from the conflict. The way to resolve the conflict is to show them how they will gain from the resolution of the conflict. So be therefore mentally prepared to understand that breaking the cycle is neither easy nor painless, but it is essential to break free. And then that harmony and resolution of the conflict will be definitely beneficial for both parties. If you can sell this line to people, you will be sure to be able to resolve the conflicts. And that's why it's very important to acquire the skills to resolve conflicts. Please understand that difference of opinion is not opposition. इख्तिलाफ राय मुखालिफत नहीं है. It's a sign of commitment. Only people who are committed will disagree with you. People, if they are not committed, they don't care one way or the other. Right? Now, what must you do? Two things. Separate people from issues. It's not me versus you. It is separate this is the issue that you are working on, right? Second one is differentiate between criticism and critique. Criticism is of the individual, critique is of the issue and the situation. So don't criticize people, look at the issue and critique the issue. These two things are the most important things that we can do. Now, what you must not do is do not criticize the opinion or the person. I think this is a bad opinion. I think this is nonsense. Right? That's a bad thing. No, do not ever do that. Don't even say, I don't agree. Many people, they start with, I don't agree. Because the moment you say, I don't agree, the other person's back is up. He is wrong. No. Even if he is wrong, you state what you have to say. When you say it, they will know that what you are saying is against what the other person has said. They will know that the other person is wrong, or they will know that you disagree. There is no need to announce that and walk around with a flag saying, I disagree. Again, and very important, use of words. Don't say things like silly and shallow and ignorant and this and that. No. Use of language, very, very important. Be very clear. Do not show irritation. No bad mouthing. No profanity. Be very, very clear. Because remember, one single word can ruin a whole day or more of effort in resolving a conflict. Sometimes you might find that you are now too stressed out. You're really too. You're not really interested in keeping on engaging at that time. If that is the case, take a break. Take a break, go, cool down effect, whatnot, go have a cup of coffee or something, and then come back. But don't stay there and show irritation. Right? Please understand very clearly that critiquing is not criticism. Critiquing is a critical analysis. So for that you have to separate reason from emotion. Don't get angry and sad, glad, bad, mad has no place in a conflict. Conflict resolution has to be done with a cool head and with reasoning and logic and with evidence, not with emotion. Because if you put emotion into that, everything goes out of the window. Right? So don't get hooked to the people, stay with the issue. Very, very, very important, as I've said here, show WIIFM, what's in it for me. This is the single most important thing in a conflict. If you can show the other person what's in it for them, your conflict is resolved. Why? Imagine that whoever you are speaking to is asking you this in so many words. Why must I listen to you? Why must I do what you want me to do? And you have to give them an answer which makes sense to them in their context. Right? That's why communication is so important. This is not a matter of fooling anybody. What you are doing effectively is you're moving from me versus you to me plus you versus the problem. This is the psychological movement that you have to do. From me versus you to me and you versus the problem. So you and I are no longer adversaries. We are collaborators. We are a team, and we are working against the problem. And when the problem is solved, both of us will benefit. This is the WIIFM. Right? Now I want to tell you 3 things now before we go. Number 1, 4 reminders while differing. Difference of opinion indicates interest and commitment. So appreciate this and thank people. Number 2, Stating your opinion as absolutely correct is wrong, because you are not getting wahi. There's no revelation coming on you. So say that this is what I think. I'd like you to think about this. I want you to do this as an experiment. Stand up and push, hand to hand, push. What do you see? You find the other person pushes back. The more you push, the more pushback you will get. So don't push, offer. Number 3, don't criticize the other person or the person's opinion. You state what you have to say without being critical and without sounding critical. Remember, the sound is very important. So make sure you use the right words. And number 4 is simply state your perspective politely and with evidence. Remember the hadith, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Allah will humiliate the person who insults and humiliates his brother. So humiliating and insulting just because you are in a position to do that, please don't do that. It will end up in you yourself getting humiliated. Now, what hinders hypocrisy? Saying something but having something inside. First of all, people see through that. So you are not really fooling anybody. And even if you do fool them, you can't fool them all the time. You can't fool all the people all the time. So people will see through that, and your credibility will take a beating, will get destroyed. Number 2, what does not help is closed mind. Your mind is made up, you're not going to change, then don't even waste time. Don't waste time in talking to people, because your mind is already... So keep an open mind, because you might come up with a far better solution. Number 3, arrogance. Looking down on others and all that doesn't work. Number 4, my way or the highway doesn't work. Number 5, not enough homework doesn't work. Homework is very, very important. In a conflict situation, the better you understand the situation, the stronger you will be. Ask yourself one simple question. Do you want to win, or do you want a solution? The two are most of the time, the two are two different things. If you want to win, you will win probably, but you won't get a solution. So look for a solution. Now what helps? Genuinely respecting the other person. The opposite of all this. Genuine respect, appreciate their commitment, actively listen to understand them, willingness to change their own opinion, exploring alternatives, and looking for mutual benefit, win-win. Right? Now, as we have done in all the rest of these things, I want you to look at what are the action items, what will you do more of, what will you do less of, and what is something new that you are going to start doing. So what is the new thing that I'm going to start doing, what will I stop doing, and what will I continue to do more consciously this time. Right? So I wish you all the very best. Great conflict resolution going forward, and don't run from conflict. Don't be worried. It's absolutely fine to have a conflict. Conflicts can result in much better relationships, provided we know how to solve them. I hope you have some idea of how to do that better now after watching this video. But remember, watching a video is not enough. You have to actually go and practice what I have taught you here. Thank you very much, and inshallah see you for the next class, which will be next Friday, and that will be the last of the 7 keys. What will that be? I won't tell you now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.